Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Henderson, Nevada, Thanksgiving Day 2020, 12:37 a.m. You know, the most law-abiding demographic in America was busy during the height of the pandemic. When most people were social distancing, avoiding travel, and sheltering in place, these reprobates were going on a crime spree cross-country. As with so many other terrible things in America, this crime report has its origins in Texas. That's where 3 criminals rented a black sedan and headed to Las Vegas to celebrate the holidays with a bang. Literally. When they got to Henderson, Nevada, it was 12:37 a.m. That's when they carried out their first attack on I-215. They fired shots into a car with 2 passengers. Thankfully, neither passenger was hurt. These degenerates failed to kill anyone that time, but they were already planning to take another shot at it. Only a few minutes after their first attempted murder, they fired on a female motorist. She fortunately wasn't hurt. Shortly after that, they pulled next to a car on the highway and opened fire again. Fortunately, the only thing worse than their morals was their aim, because this motorist also was not hit. Then, at 12:54 a.m., surveillance video catches a white woman with a dark discoloration under her eye entering a 7-Eleven. She's accompanied by 2 white men, one of whom has numerous facial tattoos. Soon afterwards, they leave the convenience store and open fire on people in the parking lot. 4 people would be struck during this attack. One of them was 22-year-old Kevin Mendiola Jr. Mendiola would be declared dead at the scene. The killers left the scene of the murder and went to a 5th location near Lake Las Vegas. They again pulled up next to an unsuspecting motorist and opened fire. The victim would be struck in the arm. After that, the assailants disappeared, and despite a huge manhunt in the area, the Nevada police weren't able to locate them or ascertain their whereabouts. But that's okay, because they wouldn't remain in hiding for very long. At about 8:48 a.m., only 7 hours after the killing of Mendiola, the murderous trio would resurface. They had crossed state lines from Nevada into Arizona. It was in La Paz County where they would resume their crime spree. Law enforcement began receiving numerous calls about suspects in a dark-colored vehicle shooting at cars on I-95. A state trooper spotted the vehicle, resulting in a high-speed chase. The 3 criminals wound up driving off the highway and their car rolled over. When the police tried to arrest them, at least one of the killers pointed a gun at them. The police opened fire on the armed suspect, hitting him with non-life-threatening injuries. The police recovered several weapons from the killers. All 3 criminals were arrested and charged with dozens of felonies, including murder and attempted murder. The identities of these killers would eventually be revealed as Sean McDonnell, his brother Christopher McDonnell, and Sean's wife Kaylee Lewis. Christopher McDonnell told police that Kaylee was the driver during their crime spree. Now keep in mind, this murderous rampage happened over 3 years ago, and they still haven't gone on trial yet. In fact, one of the defendants, Sean McDonnell, the guy with all the great facial tattoos, was deemed competent to stand trial originally, but then a judge decided to overrule that and declared him incompetent to stand trial, and she decided to have him committed until some prison shrinks finally gave the go-ahead to put him on trial. Again. See, when you're black and you get charged, there's all kinds of trapdoors, booby traps, and roadblocks to prevent you from proving your innocence. On the other hand, if you're not black, then there's all kinds of escape hatches, safety nets, and back doors that prevent or at the very least slows down the law from being able to touch you. And of course, you won't be surprised to find out that at least one of these criminals was on parole at the time he decided to carry out this crime spree. The white media did report that Sean McDonnell allegedly was yelling, "I am God," while firing his gun. Now that's something to remember about these little mass shooters who run around, particularly if they're of the white supremacist persuasion. As far as they're concerned, the reason that they love guns so much is they literally think of the gun as being an extension of themselves. In their minds, as far as they're concerned, the gun is kind of like Thor's hammer in that it's a conduit for the power that they believe comes from themselves. So when they murder people, well, it's not the gun that's killing them, it's them killing them, and they're just using the gun as a conduit. That's how these white supremacists think of it. The gun is basically a divine means of funneling their own, what they believe to be internal power. That's the kind of grandiosity, the kind of delusion, the kind of degenerate mentality that these white supremacists have. And that brings me to the next point. Why do I keep calling these guys white supremacists? Well, there's something the white media was burying about this crime spree. At the 7-Eleven shooting, Christopher McDonnell says his brother Sean told him to shoot the black guy. So that makes this a hate crime, or at least it would if the authorities decided to pursue it as such. But they've been saying from the very beginning that they can't say whether this is going to be prosecuted as a hate crime or not, which of course means they're not going to do it. There have been terrorism charges filed, however. It just goes to show how far out of their way they'll go to avoid bringing those hate crimes charges. They absolutely hate the hate crime charges because this is something that criminalizes white supremacist behavior. As we've seen with so many other mass killings and spree killings, and a disproportionate number of them, we see that these murderers were targeting black people. At the very least, they had black people front of mind during these atrocities. Even the cases like Columbine and Kyle Rittenhouse, where they don't kill any black people, that doesn't change the fact that they still have black people in their crosshairs. But just to prove that there's no honor among sleaze, Kaylee Lewis's lawyers have asked the judge to disjoin her case from that of her husband, Sean McDonald, and her brother-in-law, Christopher. And she also recently filed for divorce from her prison cell. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm shocked. I would have thought for sure that this was a picture of wedded bliss. That mugshot of Kaylee with the black eye, as I explained earlier, she was seen on surveillance video with that black eye on the morning of their crime spree, so that means she already had it before this began. Someone struck her in the face. Was it Sean McDonald, perhaps? In fact, for the few white media outlets that bothered to report on this crime spree, it was Kaylee's divorce filing that got the attention. I suppose the freak show aspect of a woman in prison awaiting trial filing for divorce from her husband who she committed the crimes with was something that they thought would fit their man bites dog mentality. That's the white media for you. It's 2024 now, and their trial still hasn't happened, and it isn't scheduled until this April. Of course, it remains to be seen if it's actually going to happen this time, but regardless, we all know that this will be allowed to fade from the headlines. And if the genetic immunity from law kicks in, they'll all be out of prison in 7 years no matter what happens, by which time the Southwest better hunker down. Because now that they've brought Nevada and Arizona the Thanksgiving Day from hell, I can only imagine what kind of carnage they've got in mind for Christmas. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day. And be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Yafet Jones, Wesley Monroe, Amir Miller, Eric Moore, and Jabari. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.